Are commercial breweries lying about freshness? What the date code tells you, what it hides, and what actually makes beer taste old. Well, the short answer is usually no. Usually no to that question, but the label can mislead. Welcome, everybody. I'm Steven, Northwest Small Batch Brewing. Today's topic, as I stated, has to do with the freshness and the date on your beer can. Fresh is not a measurable thing. What I mean is, number one, a quality window chosen by the brewery. That's what freshness is, right? It's not like it's something scientific. It is literally a window chosen by the brewery. It's a date based on an expected flavor. It's a product that may remain safe after peak flavor. It's confusing though. It's confusing, right? The packaged on date versus the Best By date. This drives me crazy, by the way, when I see a Best By date. Man, I don't care so much what a brewery thinks their Best By date is. I want to know the packaged on date. And I know why breweries do this. It's marketing. They probably figure that if they don't put a Best By date, then what's going to happen is someone's going to pick it up and see the packaged on date and either be confused and think it's expired already, or they're going to decide on their own what they think is too old to be a beer, and that could affect the sales of that beer. So instead, these breweries have switched to a Best By date, which I hate. Anyway, what's also confusing is that there are different codes that the breweries use on these dates sometimes that you don't know how to read. And there's no universal like fresh IPA standard, right? We all have an idea in our head how long an IPA stays fresh, but there's no universal standard. And then let's talk about the other reason that fresh is not really a measurable thing, and that is misleading information. There are long windows of hop forward beer, right? There's hard to find codes. And there is a fresh marketing, as I was just saying, without any real context to that marketing. Honestly, the truth depends on the beer style, the package date, and, well, everything that happened after the packaging. So let's decode the package. 3 dates that sound familiar but answer different questions. When the beer is entered the package, that's the packaged on date, right? That's the date I'd like to know. It is the best tool for judging actual age because you know when it was packaged. You don't know what happened before that, but most likely it didn't take too long between being done and being packaged. So the other date that is similar is the Best By date, right? That we were just talking about that I don't like. Or the best before date, depending on how you want to say that, right? This is the brewery's like quality target, right? It doesn't really tell you exactly when the beer was packaged. It doesn't really tell you when the beer is not good. It's just the brewery's own personal quality target. All right, and then you have another number called the lot or Julian code. This is something we don't talk about much. You might not have even heard of this. It's useful for traceability, but it usually requires some kind of decoder or brewery-specific explanation as to what that code means. So what's the best consumer-friendly, best practice for dates? In my opinion, plain language packaging, right? Put the package date on the can. And if you want to elaborate on that, you can put storage guidelines on it, right? But give me the package on date, not the Best By date. So as long as we're talking about dates, what makes the beer taste old, right? Let's answer that question, right? Well, the reality is freshness is mostly a race against oxygen and heat, okay? And that's important, and I'm going to explain why that's important, all right? Obviously, oxygen is the enemy of hop aroma. On top of that, it can cause a beer to get oxidized and sort of get a cardboardy flavor, and it's not pleasant. Oxygen, after fermentation, can dull the aroma. It can darken the color of your beer. It can increase the sweetness, believe it or not, of your beer. And eventually it can produce this, like I said, a papery or cardboard-like character in your beer. So oxygen, bad, right? At least at that stage of the brewing. Warm storage, right? So warm storage accelerates chemical and sensory change. So research on hoppy beers and ales has found that cold, dark storage suppresses oxidized off flavors. So, stands to reason, we want our hoppy beers to stay cold all the way from the brewery to the store to house. And finally, the race against bad taste in your beer. It is a race. Time. Time doesn't act alone. You got packaged oxygen and storage temperature both determine how quickly time becomes noticeable, right? So beers are ticking time bombs. Even beers you age have a limit to how long that they benefit from being aged, and diminishing returns, and eventually it goes down the other side of the pendulum, and you start actually worsening your beer instead of improving it. So don't age your beer forever. There's a point of no return. So, and of course, oxygen and heat, the longer you're exposed to either of those, the worse, the flavor of the beer is going to be. So let's talk about the whole process from bright tank to glass. You guys know what a bright tank is? A bright tank is basically where a brewery stores their beer that's ready to be packaged. It's in a big vat, but that's basically ready to be packaged, probably cold crashed or whatever. And so anyway, first thing they do is they transfer the beer, right? Hoses, tanks, and agitation from that transfer can add oxygen. Remember, at this stage, even at this stage, before it even gets in your can, you don't want oxygen. So there could be oxygen and turbulence inside the hoses that are putting the beer into your can, the tank itself, agitation from all that. And of course, the beer is, as the beer is filling, dissolved oxygen, and a headspace oxygen become another package risk. So you're filling it and seaming it, the can, right? As you're filling it, some breweries do have counter pressure can fillers, and that's the best option, but many don't. They're very expensive, and a lot of canneries, canneries, they just, basically fill the can, and quickly cap it. So any kind of oxygen that gets into the beer between that bright tank, the filling machine, and your can, it can get in there. And if there's oxygen in the headspace and they don't purge that headspace with CO2, all that has that risk of causing flavor problems in your beer and affecting the shelf life. The warehouse, right? Now goes to the warehouse. Well, do they refrigerate the warehouse? Probably not. So warm temperatures and time in the warehouse, right? The warmer the warehouse is, the faster the time moves, where it's basically causing off flavors. Remember, colder temperatures are going to stall those reactions that can cause bad flavors, like from the oxygen. So warmer is not good. Then from the warehouse, goes on a truck, maybe refrigerated, maybe not, and goes to the retail store. So you get to the retail store, and now you have problems there. Number one, shelf rotation. It's very possible, And listen, I used to work at a grocery store, so I can admit this. Sometimes when they're stocking shelves, they don't rotate the stuff on the shelf. It gets really time consuming as an employee if you're working through graveyard shift filling shelves and you have to pull everything off to put the new stuff in the back. I promise you it doesn't always happen. So shelf rotation, you got to watch the cans you're picking. And of course, the cooler placement, right? Determine the freshness and the shelf life of that beer. There is no honest universal shelf life for a beer. Let's talk quickly about different styles of beer and what is fresh and what you can do about that. So let's start with the obvious, like the beer I have in front of me here. By the way, this beer, I'm just going to read this to you because I've got it here. It says July 26th. Sorry, it says 10 June 26, which obviously means the 10th of July, 2026. We're past that right now, so it's past its date. Then it says BEN 1331. That's your code. I don't know what BEN is, BEN, if it means beneficial or if it's something part of that code. There's no way to know. But it doesn't say whether that's the best by date or the can date. At this point, I know that it's the best by date because they would have, they didn't, I know when I bought this, so, but it doesn't say. And so it's kind of like irritating. Anyway, so let's start with hazies, right? Hazy IPAs, heavily dry hopped beers and IPAs. So what fresh protects? Like if a beer is kept fresh, right? This hazy IPA is kept fresh, this hoppy beer. What is protected? It's hop aroma, which is central and can fade and transform quite a bit if the beer is not kept fresh. What's your best move? Buy B-U-Y, buy the package date and keep it cold. That's the best you can do as a shopper, is make sure you're getting the best date and keep it cold. And if you think it's too old, don't buy it. What about pale ales? West Coast IPAs. Well, I mean, West Coast IPAs can be hoppy, but generally they're not dry hopped. But these days that's changing, to be honest with you. But if we're talking about a traditional West Coast IPA or pale ale, what does freshness protect in that style of beer? Well, again, it protects, as always, the hop expression. It also, the recipe and packaging can improve stability for these types of beers. So what can you do as a shopper? I mean, again, buy more recent, like buy the package date and buy it cold, buy it refrigerated. Let's keep going down the line. Pilsners, light lagers. All right. Not so hoppy, right? Well, if they're fresh, you're protecting, some subtle flavor in these lagers that make oxidation more visible. There's not as much room to hide in these beers. So if they do get oxidized, it's hard not to notice. It protects, well, let's talk about this. These beers, especially lagers, are sometimes filtered or pasteurized, and that can extend their stability. I don't like it. I also think that pasteurizing and filtering can remove flavors that you want, but breweries do it to help extend the life of the beer. And then the move that you can make to buy like the best, freshest one, there's not much. I mean, they may not have dates on these. You never know. They don't always put dates on these kinds of beers. All you can do is try to buy them cold. And, if buy them cold, that's your best bet. What about stouts, right? Stouts and barrel-aged beer. So what does freshness protect in a stout and a barrel-aged beer? Protects fresh hop aroma, which is not usually the primary target in a stout or barrel-aged beer, but if there is any, it's going to protect that. And There are some flavors that evolve, but you don't have to worry so much about these, honestly, your move as a shopper, unless you're intentionally looking at the age, you don't have to really worry too much about, looking for something specific. Like sometimes I'll buy a stout when I see, especially if it's barrel aged, if it says like 2022 or something, I might buy it because I'm like, great, I don't need to age it. It's already ready. All right, sour beers, sour or mixed fermentation beers. So what does freshness protect in a sour beer? Well, it protects the acidity. Obviously, these beers are sour. It protects the microbes that are in them that's making them sour. And the packaging and the alcohol can create different aging behavior in these beers. So what's your best move as a shopper? Follow the guidelines of the brewery. These beers, again, they don't really age well, but there isn't really evidence that, that there's a problem with having them be older, like within reason. All right. There's something called a cold chain. I'm going to explain. But here's the problem. A date code, right, like the one that might be on this can, cannot reveal a broken, what I call a cold chain, right? Here's the chain. You got the brewery, you got the cold room, you got the truck or warehouse, and then you have the store shelf. Every warm handoff in that chain is a broken part of the chain, right? It basically spends part of the flavor budget of that beer. So you can't always know. It's a missing variable. You don't always know, whether a beer is going to be good or bad because you're not there for the whole life of that beer. So let's talk about reality, because breweries are, in reality, no matter how much you want to believe that it's a passion project and it's because of their love of beer, the reality is that these breweries are in it because it's a business. It's a business first, right? And you have, a freshness window, we'll call it, that the brewery chooses, right? So why would a brewery choose a long freshness window, right? Why would they put a long window? And this is where I was saying, if they put a best by date, you don't know necessarily how long that beer has been out there because they're not telling you when it was packaged. So it could have a really long window on it, right? Well, first of all, there's reasons for that. Not that they're good, but I'll tell you the reasoning from the business side. You've got the distribution reach, right? A beer sold far from the brewery has to have time to move through the warehouses and retail to get to where it's going. So the further the brewery is from you, it had to travel more to get there, and there's more of a chance that that freshness window is not good. Inventory and returns, right? Short windows can create unsold stock, right? If somebody sees that date, what I was saying, if they put the package date and someone has an idea in their head that the beer's only good for like a month, then it could create a lot of problems with unsold stock, write-offs, and pressure on the distributors and the retailers because they can't sell the beer. You also have process capability, right? Low oxygen, filtration, pasteurization, and stable package formats can support large quality targets. So what I'm saying is, if this brewery is able to do all of that, right? If they can have low oxygen in their entire process, if they filter the beer, which you wouldn't normally want to do, I don't think, on an IPA, but pasteurizing you could do. And then if you have stable packaging, like I said, if you have counter pressure can fillers and that sort of thing, and you keep it cold, keep it cold through the whole process of getting it to the store, then you could have a much longer freshness window because of that, because you have really good process in place. Lastly, brand positioning, right? A broad best by date promise might prioritize consistency and availability over like a peak top intensity. Us big time like beer fanatics don't like that. But you know, the general public, you know, it might be sort of a marketing thing. Remember, with all this, keep in mind, I know this sounds negative towards the brewery and their business, but a long window is not necessarily proof of a business or a brewery being dishonest. It's a claim. It's a claim about acceptable quality, not necessarily peak intensity of that beer. Top 5 list, sort of like the Tonight Show. 5 red flags. 5 red flags that deserve, what I feel deserve, consumer pushback. All right, when fresh becomes, like the word fresh, becomes questionable. All right. Number 1, you ready? Brrr, drum roll. When there's no readable date anywhere on the package. All right. Box, can, whatever. There's no readable date. Sometimes you get a date that's like up here on this ridge. Can't read it. It's all smudged. We call that a smudge date. This one has been smudged a little bit. Whatever they print on here, it gets smudged easily before it dries. So if there's no readable date, that's a red flag. And that deserves consumer pushback, in my opinion. Number 2, a code exists, like on this can, but the brewery provides no public way to decode it. So if you can't go to the brewery's website and find a way to look that code up and see what it means, that's a red flag. They're hiding something. They don't want you to know that detail. Number 3, red flag. When the package says fresh, while giving only a distant best by date. That's a red flag. Number 4, a hop forward beer sits warm with no storage guidance, right? I mean, honestly, if a hop forward beer is sitting somewhere warm on a shelf, period, that's a red flag. I'll be honest, this one was, because I can't find it anywhere, and the only place I found it was sitting on a shelf at like a Total Wine or something. Then I was very skeptical of buying it, but I really wanted I had a hankering for it, you know? So, yeah, I mean, if they had storage guidance, if they had something on the can that explained why it didn't have to be stored cold, or if it was stored warm, it would be, you know, the date might be a little bit shorter. They've had 2 dates, a best by if it's cold, a best by if it's warm, you know? But that doesn't ever happen. So that's a red flag, in my opinion. Don't buy a hoppy beer that's just sitting on the shelf warm. And number 5, the number 5 reason or red flag that deserves consumer pushback regarding freshness on a beer. When the brewery blames the consumer without addressing the distribution or rotation, right? So you contact the brewery and you say, hey, I mean, I had your beer and it was terrible. And it was, you know, within its date, or who knows, but whatever that is, right? And the brewery just immediately blames you and says, well, you should have drank it before that date, or I don't know, whatever. You probably didn't store it right. But they never once say, well, it could be a problem with our distribution. They might be, you know, it might be traveling on trucks that are not refrigerated and might have to go a long distance. Or it may be that the store, like the retail store, is not rotating their beer, and you ended up with a beer that was not fresh because they haven't been rotating them properly. All right, so let's talk about what stale beer actually tastes like and smells like. We call this sensory in the food world. A sensory scientist is someone that has a really good palate for tasting things. I'm not saying I do, but once you've done it for a while with beer, you really can start tasting the difference. So should we start with the fresh? And then we'll go to not so fresh. So on the fresh side, right, we're talking about beer that tastes and smells like it should, right? Especially hoppy beer, right? It should be a bright hop aroma, right? It should have, depending on the hop aroma, it would have like citrus or pine or floral or tropical. You should be getting these hop notes from a fresh beer. And there should be a clean bitterness and a defined finish to the beer. And I'm not even talking about color. I'm just talking about taste and smell here. So if you have a beer that's not so fresh, first of all, it's going to be pretty much the opposite of all those things I just said, right? It's going to have a dulled aroma. It's going to be sweeter. Believe it or not, if a beer is oxidized or old, it can have a sweeter taste to it because the hops and the balance are off now. It'll be more malt forward because the hops are not there to balance it. It can be like a darker color. I know I said we're doing smell and taste, but it can definitely have a darker color. It can be kind of papery, cardboardy flavor. It's very common with hops that get oxidized. It can get sherry kind of notes, like dark fruit sherry notes, when it gets really advanced in its oxidation. All right, so I want to give you a little guide here on how to buy smarter. This is my 30-second freshness check in the beer aisle. Ready? Rapid fire. Number 1, find the date. Bottom of the can, label edge sometimes, neck sometimes, the carrier that it's in sometimes, or the carton, whatever you want to call it. But there should be a date. If not, that's a red flag. Number 2, identify the type of beer, right? And the code. Sorry, well, both, but identify the type of code. So is it a packaged on date? Is it a best by date? Is it just a lot code? Look for the code. Number 3, match the style. Sorry, I got mixed up with number 2 there, right? So if it's a hop forward beer, you need to be more strict with it, right? Number 4, check the storage, right? Is it being stored cold, especially for an IPA? If not, it's a red flag. Number 5, inspect the package, right? If there's any leaks, bulges, dents, especially around the seam, or any compromised closures, huge red flag. Don't buy it. And last thing, freshness check, is to basically record the bad beer. If you do buy beer that has any of these things happen to it, you really should take a picture of it. Make sure you get the code, if there's a code on the beer, and send it to the brewery and the retailer and tell them, not just to try to get like a free replacement, but because they need to know that their beer is, not good quality. They want to know. I promise you, right? Your goal is not perfect certainty when it comes to beer freshness. It's basically reducing the odds of paying a premium price for a craft beer and ending up with diminished flavor. So prove it to yourself. I mean, here's a little thing you could do if you wanted, just for fun. Run a 3-age blind tasting test. So what do I mean by that? I mean, you buy the same beer from 3 different stores, or buy the same beer with 3 different package dates. All right. Chill all the samples to the same temperature, hide the cans, and then do randomized pours. And then score them on, the freshness criteria I told you about: their intensity, their hop character, their sweetness, their color, any papery notes. And then reveal the dates after you do the scoring. See what it looks like. See if any of those beers, especially the older ones with older dates, can you tell a difference flavor-wise? Can you see, a difference in the freshness by the date? I bet you can. All right, so the final verdict, it's about context, not outrage, right? Are these breweries lying about the freshness, about the date on the can? Not really. I don't think there's evidence to prove that they're lying to us, to actually say yes. But I do think 100%, consumers are justified in making certain demands. I think that we are justified in demanding readable package dates. That is one of my biggest pet peeves, is when it's hard to find, or it's smudged, or it's in some kind of code, or it might be a date, but you can't even figure out what the date is on it. You can't read it. I think justified to demand plain language and date meaning. In other words, this can doesn't say if it's a best by date or if it's a package date. It's just a date, right? So really, these guys need to do a better job in being plain about their language on their date. What else can we demand? We should be able to demand realistic, style-specific windows, right? In other words, there should be like an industry standard, like a hazy IPA should be within this freshness window. When you go to the store, it should be between the package date and 3 months, 4 months, I don't know, whatever. But, you know, there should be some kind of standard there. And if that not across beers, at least that brewery should have that standard, and they should have that somewhere, even if it's just on their website. Prefer it to be on the package so you don't have to go looking it up, but somewhere they should state that. I also think we are justified in demanding cold storage, right? If it's a hoppy beer, I think it's justified that we demand that the beer be packaged cold, it be warehoused cold, it be transferred, you know, by the distributor cold. It should be cold in the retailer, right? Once I buy it, now it's on me. Anything that happens between the store and home and what I do with it, that's on me, right? And finally, I think consumers are justified in demanding accountability through distribution. Check the date and trust your palate. That's all you can do. Thanks for stopping by, staying with it. Appreciate it. I put a lot of time and effort into this video. I really did. And I hope to see you again next week for another video. I will be doing either a whole brew day, another brew talk. Sometimes I do whiskey tasting, although I don't have a new bottle at the moment, but I do get them, so I will be doing it when I get one. And yeah, so until then, thanks for stopping by, and please, if you don't homebrew, think about homebrewing. You don't need a lot of money to do it. There are ways where you can get started for just like $50, $60, with a little bit of DIY. You can do it. And it's a great hobby, and it's magical to be able to make beer that you can drink at home that tastes good. Cheers, everybody. See you soon.